Hi y'all, today we are learning about synthetic division. We can use division when they ask us to divide two functions. So if I have f divided by g, or f divided by d, or f of x over g of x, f of x divided by g of x, all of these things mean the same thing, as well as find the quotient. Remember that the word quotient is our symbol to use division. Okay? So all of these things mean the same thing. So we're going to jump into one of the problems. It says if f of x equals this and g of x equals this, then what is f of x over g of x, or f of x divided by g of x? So the way I'm going to start is, first thing, I'm going to write my problem. So I want a big long fraction, and I want f on the top. So I'm going to put x squared, or x to the third minus 2x squared plus 3x minus 4. And then it says g of x is the denominator, right? So I'm dividing by x minus 2. Okay? So that is the setup of our problem. This is the problem that we are trying to solve. So in order to solve this using synthetic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the denominator and I'm going to put the opposite of it right here. So if I have x minus 2, then what I'm going to put right here is positive 2. Right, so I'm going to put positive 2. Some people like to put like a little box here to say what that number is. So since it's negative 2, we're going to flip it to be positive 2. Right, it's changing into positive 2. So we're going to use positive 2. That is our number in our box there. And then we need to write the coefficients from the top. We need to write the coefficients, like just the number portions, right here in a line. So I'm going to go ahead and use a different color. So remember that the coefficient, the number that accompanies x to the third by itself, would be the number 1. So I'll put that number first. These are my x to the thirds. I have x squareds, my x's, and then my numbers by themselves. So my x squared, in this case, x squared, its coefficient is negative 2. So I'm going to put negative 2 right here. Okay. The coefficient of x right here is positive 3. I'm going to go ahead and write positive 3 right there. That is positive 3. And then my number that's by itself at the end is negative 4. So I have negative 4 here. So I take my denominator, I flip it to make it my box number, and then my coefficients of my numerator turn into these numbers here. These numbers along the top. So that is the setup. The setup is the same every single time. Okay. From there, the process goes like this. I'm going to bring the first number straight down. This becomes a 1. Right? So that 1 stays the same. Now I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply this number times this number. Right? So I'm multiplying 1 times 2. 1 times 2 is 2, and I'm going to put that number right there. Right, so I do 1 times 2, and I get 2. From there, I'm going to add negative 2 plus 2. That gives me 0. Right, so negative 2 plus 2 gives me 0. That is the whole step. So I go down, I multiply, I go up, and then I add these together to get this one here. So now I'm going to multiply 0 times 2. 0 times 2 is going to give me 0. So my number 0 goes right here. Right? Remember that it moves up like this. Then I'm going to go ahead and add 3 plus 0 would be 3. So I'm going to put a 3 right here. And then I have 0 plus 3 is 3 here. I have 3 times 2 would give me 6, which goes right here. Right? 3 times 2 is 6. And again, I'm going to add these. Negative 4 plus 6 is 2. I got to the end of my line, so I'm going to go ahead and put another box around this here. Right? This is what's called a remainder. It is what is left over when I divide this big long polynomial divided by this one here. So I'm going to have my answer is going to be written here. This is my remainder. This is my number by itself. These are my x's. So this is my remainder. This is my number by itself. These are my x's, and this is my x squared. Right? So when I write my answer, I'm going to say, okay, there's 1x squared. There are 0 x's, so I don't need to write that. There is the number 3. It's positive, so I'm going to write plus 3. And the way that I write my remainder is I write it with, this is positive, so I'm going to write plus 2 over whatever my numerator was from the beginning problem, right? So my numerator from the beginning problem was x minus 2, so I'm going to write x minus 2 here. This is what is left over my remainder. So my remainder turns like this, and the other numbers that I got enter in the problem like that. This is my final answer for the division problem, f of x over g of x. This is my final answer. Okay. I'm going to pause to let you take a break there. All right, let's try a second example. So as you know, it says if f of x equals this thing and g of x equals this, what is the quotient of f and g? Right, so quotient, remember, is our division word. So I'm going to start by writing the problem. X to the 4th minus x squared plus 5 is divided by x plus 3. So remember that we're going to switch the sign, right? So x plus 3, so I'm going to put negative 3 over here in this box. Then I'm going to draw my upside down division bar. That's kind of what it looks like there. And then I need to put in my coefficients up here. So my coefficient starts with x to the 4th. Remember, that's like 1x to the 4th. It's here. That goes first. So I'm going to have x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x squared, x, and number. So I'm going to write each of those. Does this problem have any x to the 3rds? No, it doesn't. So I'm going to go ahead and put a placeholder 0 right there. Right? It has no x to the 3rds. Super important that I put in the placeholder so that I don't mess up this process. And then x squareds. Here I have an x squared. I notice that the x squared is negative, so that's like negative 1x. I'm going to put negative 1 here. I'm going to look for my x's. There are no x's, so again, I'm going to put a placeholder 0 here. And then my number is positive 5. So I have positive 5 right there. I'm going to go ahead and put positive 5. So I have 5 different numbers here, and my problem is ready to set up. So first things first, always pull down the first one here. I am going to multiply 1 times negative 3, and that is going to be negative 3. I'm going to do 0 plus negative 3, or 0 minus 3 is negative 3, like that. I do negative 3 times negative 3, goes right here. Negative 3 times negative 3 would be positive 9. So put a 9 right there. I'm going to do negative 1 plus 9, positive 8, like so. All right, so I'm going to take 8 times negative 3. That's going to give me negative 24. And I add 0 negative plus negative 24 gives me negative 24, like so. Right, and then finally I have negative 24 times negative 3, negative 24 times negative 3, to go right here. Negative 24 times negative 3 would be positive. Do that in my calculator or my head is 72. And then I have 5 plus 72 would be 77, like that. Right, remember this is the last one, so I put a box around that one. This is my remainder, my number, my x's, my x squareds, and my x to the thirds, like so. So when I write my answer, I'm going to write 1x to the third minus 3x squared plus 8x minus 24 plus 77 over my original denominator is x plus 3. Remember this right here goes down there. So I have my answer here for this problem. It looks super complicated, but you're doing a great job. In this problem, we learned about placeholder zeros, right? We learned about placeholders. You want to use placeholders when there are any like x to the thirds or x's we didn't have in this problem. So we wanted to put in a placeholder 0. Okay. All right. We have like 2-ish more problems. I want you to go ahead and try this one. It's very similar to examples 1 and 2. So I want you to pause the video, try this one on your own. All right, hopefully you're back. We are going to do f divided by g. So we have f of x is x squared plus 5x plus 1 divided by g of x, which is x plus 3. So we're going to write it in our fraction case here. Cool. So I'm going to set this up. Remember, the first thing that I do is take this and switch it into -3. That is my multiply number. I'm going to go ahead and make my upside down division. And then I need to put my coefficients up here. So I have 1x squared is my x squareds, then my x's, positive 5, my number, positive 1. So I have my x squareds, x's, constants, my number by itself. Right? So as I do this problem, I'm going to pull down positive 1. I'm going to do 1 times -3 would be -3, which I put right here. 5 minus 3 would be 2, right here. 2 times -3 is -6, which I write right here. 1 minus 6 is -5, which I right there. Got to the end of the line, so this is my remainder. This is my numbers by itself, and this is the x's. So I would have 1x, or just x, plus 2, because I have that number right there, and then minus 5 over this denominator, because that's my remainder. So minus 5 over x plus 3, just like that. This is my answer for this problem. All right. As you might remember from our last lesson, you can also plug in a number if they tell you to evaluate, like what is f divided by g of 2 rather than of x. If we have of x, we have to use synthetic division. If they tell us what number to plug in, then we can start by plugging in that number. So I have x squared plus 5x plus 1 over x plus 3. And remember that we're going to substitute anytime that I see x. I'm going to go ahead and plug in that positive 2. So I would have here 2 squared plus 5 times 2 plus 1 divided by 2 plus 3. Right, so 2 squared would be 4 plus 5 times 2 would be 10 plus 1 over 2 plus 3 is 5. 4 plus 10 plus 1, that would be 15 over 5 equals 3. So I could say that my solution to this problem is 3. Remember that if you have x, then you're going to end up with x's in your answer. If you have the number 2, then you're going to end, like if you have any number here you're evaluating, you're going to end up with a number as your answer. Okay. As you're taking a look at your assignment, you're going to take the notes that we completed today. You're going to take that, if you typed them, if you wrote them, whatever it is, you can put a picture there, you can like put a link there, whatever you got. And then for your problems here, the first few problems, you're just going to do like normal. And then there's a note here for 7 through 13 for these problems. Don't forget to use placeholders, right? So for example, here we have x to the third, but no x squared. So you're going to want to put in those zeros for the x squareds and for the x's, and then 125 at the end there, right? This is your f of x equations, and these are your g of x equations. And these are the answers. So if you're not getting this answer, you'd want to go back and check your work. Okay, that is part 1. And then you also have the checkpoint form there at the end. Okay. If you want to do some extra credit, you have some extra credit at the bottom. You can either work on paper or you can work on IXL if you prefer to do it that way. Okay, that is it for today. Have a great one.